So in this video, I'm going to explain what happens on closing day when you're buying a home in Northeast Florida, from wiring instructions, signing the paperwork, and what happens at the closing table, and how you become officially a homeowner. So if you're thinking about buying a house in Jacksonville, Clay County, or St. Johns County, this guide is going to help you go step by step, starting with the first one to closing day and beyond. Okay, you get word from the lender. Clear to close. Wow, that is the words we've been listening for. That means it's time to set up your final walkthrough. It's time to set up the closing. And the lender is also going to give you your closing disclosure. And that's going to break down all your closing costs and all the closing costs for the seller, so you know who is paying what, who's getting this credit or that credit. It's going to talk about your payment, what you're going to be paying in principal and interest, plus your escrow items, which is your homeowner's insurance, your property taxes, and it's also going to tell you what your interest rate is. So what you want to do is look at this closely, this closing disclosure, because you want to make sure that the numbers they gave you are the same ones that you've received before. Um, Also, you want to make sure the interest rate that you agreed upon is the interest rate that is on this closing disclosure. Now, also, you will see a couple different interest rates. One is your actual interest rate on the loan. The other one is what we call an APR, which is throwing all the closing costs and everything into that rate and gives you a rate based on those things. But that's not what your payment is going to be based upon. It's just another disclosure, so you don't have to worry about it. If you see it and it says APR, don't stress. Now, you can always ask me. Every time you have questions about any of the process, you always ask me, and I can look through it. And I'm also going to make sure, if I don't understand or I have questions, that I'm going to go to the lender, because I'm never going to say, oh, yeah, when I really don't know. I'm going to tell you, I don't know, but I'm going to find out, because I want you to love this process and think back on it with lots of pleasant memories and joy that you bought your home. Okay, so once you've reviewed your closing disclosure and all those numbers look good, then it's time to wire your funds to the title company. Now remember, in my past series, I talked about the wiring instructions and that you need to make sure you confirm they are the correct ones from the title company. If you receive suspicious looking emails, always confirm, even if that's calling me, sending me a text, or Googling the title company number, looking on their website, and calling them directly if it's different than a number that's in their email. We do not want you to lose your funds at this point. This would be horrible. So make sure you always confirm that. I know, I'm always talking about it, and I'm going to continue to talk about it because it just makes me sick thinking about a person losing all this money to a scammer. Now, the final walkthrough, that's one of those things that sometimes they happen on the day of closing. And I really don't like to do it on the day of closing. I like to do it like a day or so before closing. That way, if there are some problems, that we have a little bit of time to address that. And you're probably thinking, what problems could we have? Well, what if there's a leak that came up suddenly, or a gaping hole that came up suddenly? It's also to check and make sure that all the appliances that was agreed upon are still in the house as well. There's also, to make sure that the seller is progressing on moving out if it was an occupied house. Now, in Florida, the seller does not have to move out until the day of closing, before closing. So when you're signing the paperwork, that seller should be out. So this is for us to check. Now, for our walkthroughs a day or two before closing, the seller couldn't possibly not be moved out yet, and that's okay. It just depends on their progress. If they have a whole house full and they haven't started packing, then we might want to be talking to the listing agent. But if they got just a little bit of stuff here and there, and you got the U-Haul out in the driveway and they're moving stuff, we should be okay. But I'm also going to follow up. If that's the situation, I'm going to follow up later to make sure that everything's going to go smoothly for you. I'm going to go by the house and make sure that's all good, because I don't want any surprises for you. Now, closing. Back in the day, when I say back in the day, it means before COVID, it was normal for the buyer and the seller to meet at the closing table. It was actually kind of cool because you got to ask questions to the seller that only the seller may know, or they might give you some cool tips about the neighborhood or the neighbors, or how does this work or how does that work. So everybody would sign. The sellers have way less to sign than the buyers do, unless the buyers are paying cash. Once once COVID hit, though, that totally changed. We ended up having to do some closings outside, one party at a time. Everybody's wearing the mask, not meeting inside the title company, or if we did meet inside the title company, definitely different rooms. After COVID, once that was passed, and things were relaxed a little bit more, closings started to get back to normal a little bit where both parties would meet. But I have noticed that even the local sellers, sometimes they will come in, they will sign their part first, and then the buyer comes in at a later date and they sign their part. Once you sign that your part, then the title company rep will send it to the lender. The lender's going to look through it again, make sure everything's good, everything's signed, dated, initialed, and then they're going to release the funds. Sometimes they already release the funds, but they have to give a funding number, and it's already wired and ready to go. Once that happens, guess what? You get your keys, and you are now a homeowner. When you go home and you look at this house, it's yours, and you can plan for the future. Start doing the fun part, moving, getting your U-Haul done. And hopefully you've gotten all the utilities in your name ahead of time, so that if you're planning to move in the same day you're closing or a couple days after, it's already ready to go. And the fun part of moving all your stuff, and then you wish you sold it, but that's for another day. Now, has there been times where you cannot close or get your keys the day of closing? And I hate saying this, but I want to give you the heads up. Sometimes we have what's called a dry close, where we're closing so late in the day that the lender can't release the funds before business day is over, and they can't release it until the morning. Oh, that's why I always try to do these closings as early as possible to give us a little bit of leeway. But the really, really good lenders, when everything's good and they have their ducks in a row, they already have that stuff ready to go. So it's just a matter of confirming it, turning it on, boom. But if it's a dry closing, you won't be able to get your keys until the next morning when it funds. And I know that is unfortunate. That has happened to me, but it's usually because we wait late in the day. And was back in a time sometimes where they're trying to get people into the house as quickly as possible, and maybe they don't have everything, they're not organized. But we try to do it as early in the morning as possible. That way you have more time just in case something happens. But usually when you close, you get your keys. Some states you have to record the title, or the deed. But in our state, you don't have to record it before you move in. It's going to get recorded. It's going to get sent to the courthouse, and they're going to record it for public records. When that happens, you're going to get notified that it's been recorded, and you need to file your homestead exemption, because homestead, you'll get $50,000 off the assessed value, except for schools, that's $25,000. Now, as of this recording, there is a new property tax bill that is going to the ballot in November 2026, where we can vote for a higher homestead exemption for 2027 and 2028. So if you're watching this in 2029, it's already happened, or it's changed, or even 2027 or 2028, it's changed. So that's going to be updated as well. So you need to make sure you file, and you do as soon as you can, because you have to be in your house by the end of December, and you need to file by March, and you really want to do it sooner so that you don't forget, because it is easy to slip your mind, but you can do it online. So that's an easy process. Prove that you're the owner, utility bills, they have a list, plus the deed, and then You're good to go. You never have to do it again. So now what's left is for you to start moving boxes around, rearranging the furniture once you put it into the house. Continue to rearrange furniture, continue to bring boxes in. And then afterwards, you're like, I don't want to ever move again because this is really a pain. Or maybe that's just me. But either way, you've reached the finish line. You're a homeowner now. Congratulations on your new home.